you're spending so much time in video games. That's not going to help you in school or get a job. Right? So it's not always encouraged. Whereas for them, it's like might be the only thing they feel good at because games offer a lot of safety and control. So they see the value in it, but others tend not to. There's all these expectations and norms that are set by
Others.
others. And when we don't measure up to those norms that aren't inherently ours, it can feel like there's a deficiency in who we are.
They might feel like insecure in the real
Mhm.
world.
Welcome, Sakai.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited that we get to play a game with you. I'm Jenny, I'm host of the Puzzle Exchange podcast. And
And I'm Debbie. And yeah, we met last time. I'm really interested in how your therapy works throughout the board game. And thanks for bringing your cards here to show us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm Sakai Edwards. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing here in California. I also have a background in expressive arts therapy and geek therapy, and using spiritual cultural traditions in my practice as a therapist. I work with all ages, and I really tend to think that my work helps folks connect with themselves, connect with others, their community, and something bigger. So, whether that's God or spirit or nature or humanity or source or the creator, anything that's kind of bigger than themselves, I see that as being my work. And also the three main groups I work with are folks who I kind of call themselves any mix of geeks or gamers, artists or creatives, or folks who are spiritual.
Cool. Do you see yourself as a geek as well?
Yeah, totally. That was me. I always felt like a misfit. I wasn't born in the United States. I was born in England. I was 2 years old, but no accent or anything. But I was there long enough, and my family was there long enough to have their own different traditions. Right. My parents are also Jamaican, so we have a blend of like Jamaican roots, British roots, and then mixed with United States American traditions, and so we're kind of a blend of everything. I never felt like I quite fit in anywhere. So the only space I really felt most comfortable and like myself was when I was either playing video games, doing something creative, or making music. So yeah, those are the things that just brought me joy and helped me um, just feel good about myself and like I belonged.
what kind of music do you play?
I grew up playing classical music, bass. I play a little guitar, been learning the flute lately, but I mostly love to write music. So electronic music. So I like to blend classical electronic music,
So interesting.
other genres as well. So yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. Wow, game, God, and the music. You are into very different areas.
Yeah, I try to. Yeah, and I think for me, all those things are very symbolic, and they're all about storytelling and like the imagination and your inner world too. And they just gave me a way to understand myself better and understand others and life through those things. And that's just kind of what I've always gravitated towards. But as a therapist, I'm only really diving into those things within the past couple of years. So I'm really trying to bring that back because it's been such a big part of my life in other ways. Thinking like, as a therapist, if I'm gonna work in a way that's sustainable, that like feeds me and my soul and my spirit, and be able to hear these stories, that some of them are often difficult, right? Processing these difficult stories, like I have to work in a way that brings more of who I am to support myself. But then as I realized I was bringing in my nerdy side or my geeky side or creative side, clients were bringing that side of themselves out more too. So it kind of creates the space for others to embrace who they are as well.
Would you say they're more like introverts? So they're like more sink into games or
I think there's the common perception that all gamers are introverts or quiet or shy. They definitely can be. And I think the ones who are probably the ones who um, maybe play a little bit more than others or find themselves just more comfortable in that space of playing the game versus other areas of their life. So I think a lot of people play games, a lot of different kinds of people, but the ones who feel that it's a safer place to be probably tends to be the ones who are a little bit more introverted. That's true for me at least, so, and a lot of the folks that I've worked with.
What kind of problems would you solve for them?
Yeah, they kind of come in feeling like something is wrong with them, like something is deficient in me, or I'm broken, or something about me is a flaw and needs to be fixed or needs to be changed. When what I see, my practice is really strength based. So my private practice, I don't do any diagnoses. I really look at people's strengths and areas in their life where they feel themselves, or they feel confident, they feel empowered, they feel their strengths, and help them bridge that to other places in their life. But the things that are common for folks that I work with are just around like self-confidence, not necessarily because they like see their own strengths, but I think it's more so that others don't see it. And if we're talking about folks who are gamers or maybe even artists, people in their lives might not value it or see the value in it as much as they do. Especially for kids, it's like, well, you're spending so much time in video games. That's not going to help you in school or get a job, right?
Mhm.
So it's not always encouraged. Whereas for them, it's like might be the only thing they feel good at,
Yeah.
or they not even that they're good. They might just have more control because
Mhm.
games offer a lot of safety and control.
Yeah.
There's rules, they can agree, they can choose what game they wanna play, when and with who, they can decide when to stop. So there's a lot of safety just in how games are structured in that way. So they see the value in it, but
Mhm.
others tend not to. And
Mhm.
even for artists or adult artists, they value their work, they see what meaning it brings to them, but other people in their life might not, or might expect them to have to turn it into a profession or has to be
Yeah.
viable in some way to make a living or earning. So there's all these expectations and norms that are set by
Others.
others. And when we don't measure up to those norms that
Mhm.
aren't inherently ours, it
Mhm.
can feel like there's a deficiency
Yeah.
in who we
They
are.
they might feel, like, insecure in the real
Hmm.
world, and
Yeah.
so you're, like, helping them to
Hmm.
build up that.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
And so that insecurity can look like anxiety, it can look
Mhm.
like aggression for some kids, or just so angry at the world. Others, or it can turn into depression. So it can look a lot of ways, but I
Mhm.
think it comes down to this sense of how they see themselves and how the world sees them, and that gap.
Like, how bad will it be for them to feel about themselves? Like, or is that a regular practice, more preventative? What makes someone who would go out of their way and to look for help, like they want to change
Mm, mhm, mhm, mhm.
enough? And
Yeah,
is there like is there physical conditions, or is that more of a mentally, like
yeah.
they feel depressed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, for the younger folks, it's usually parents or adults in the child's life that notice that something has changed in them, or just maybe something's just difficult in the home, and then maybe they want help for their child to understand something traumatic that might have happened, or sometimes they feel that the child's behavior or there is a challenge, or maybe they have the sense that something is happening, but they don't know what, because maybe the child doesn't have a way of communicating it. So oftentimes with children, mostly it's usually a caregiver that has brought a child in. Sometimes I've had some younger kids who want therapy and they know they want it and they're ready for it. So that's amazing to see as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is that mostly for the public practice that you
Mhm.
do, or
Yeah, I would say both. Yeah, yeah,
okay?
for both for sure.
If it's a caregiver who
Mhm.
brings the kids, like, do they have a different intention? Because would they want to, like, okay, like, let's just stay away from game
Mhm.
or something
Yeah,
like that?
sometimes exactly.
And then
Yeah.
how do like that would be conflict, right?
Mhm.
What the kid want and what the caregiver want.
Yeah.
It's could be
Right.
very different. Do you have
Yeah,
to deal with that?
all the time. Often. But, they want the same thing usually, right?
Ultimately,
Yeah,
happiness, right?
happiness, yeah, and confidence and
Yeah.
ability and, like, friends. They want their children to thrive, and kids wanna thrive too, but it's just that a lot of environments aren't set up for them to thrive. Whereas a lot of games are designed, they kind of help you learn along the way. They teach you what you don't know, they show you what skills you don't have and what you need, and kinda games are designed in a way that help you learn as you go. Some games don't intentionally because that's part of the experience. They want it to be really hard and they want players to figure things out,
She
but not
want you
everybody
to be
likes that.
play keep playing, right?
Yeah, or that
That's like as a
some
revenue
want you to
model is like
yeah.
the screen time
Mhm.
and how much money you
Right,
spend.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
like a corporation have a
Mhm.
different incentive.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and usually that's different. There's, like, the studios that design the game, but then there's the publishers, and it's the publishers
Oh,
are the ones that,
yeah.
you know, they'll make a big game. In some cases, they might even fire a team after it's made, and then they force the developers to add what you're saying is those
Right.
mechanics that are
Yeah.
designed to keep them playing and coming back and spending money. Very predatory. But so unfortunately, there is that, and it's hard sometimes to just make that distinction between them. But I think for not even just children, for anybody who plays, it just feels like, you know, you're achieving something this or you're connected to people or you're doing something that interests you. And I think you know, a lot of parents want their kids to find that. And I think kids too and adults want to find that in as many areas as they can, but it's scarier to step outside of the game. And there might not be as much hand holding or as much guidance as there are in games. So it's a little bit scarier. So I think when I usually try to help parents understand that, you know, like your child doesn't, you know, they love games, but I'm sure they would love to excel at school or in sports or in their social life. They just don't know how, right? They just need some more guidance.
It's like with the therapy, you have couples therapy, right? And
Mhm,
then it's not just the kid, it's
yeah.
also the parents. A lot of times it's the caregiver. Are they giving intention like enough time, like attention to the kid
Mhm.
when they felt lonely, then
Yeah.
maybe it's game is somewhere they can go to fulfill that
Mhm.
need.
Mm.
But working with the kids, yes, like that's it helps. But then what about the parents? Like
Yeah.
they also need to be
Yeah.
working hard on.
Yeah.
It's not just like, yeah, you send the kids to a therapist,
Mm.
problem solve, but it's
That's true.
harder than that sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're right. There's only so much you can do with a child, but then there's the family. But then there's also the schools,
Yeah,
or if there's an adult, sometimes it's
yeah.
like helping. I don't know. For some, there's yeah, a lot of adults might need support too in the work environment, given the things that they're going through. And so it's helping. I try to help whoever I'm working with determine or get a sense of what their needs are so that they can communicate it so that they can get their needs met, whether it's but from a teacher or a coach or a friend. And that's true for adults as well. And so the more folks understand what they need, then we can work towards, okay, well, how do we express that? Through a
Yeah.
letter, a song, a conversation, picture? And so helping folks figure out that skill and practice that skill as well.
Do you
Mm.
help them with like a song picture?
I've done that at times, yeah.
Really?
It depends. I kind of go with where their interests are. So as much as I love music and games, if somebody's not interested in it, I won't.
Or find a way to help them.
Yeah, and I might introduce something, but if it's not, if
Yeah.
it doesn't really speak to them, I kind of let it go, and I really try to learn what they're interested in and
That
values
that's
are.
so creative, and I feel like that's the thing with working with kids, right? Because you also work with
Yeah.
kids, and
Mhm.
sometimes you have to.
Yeah, I need to be forced to watch, like, Peppa Pig
Oh, really?
together. I need to learn their language
Right, yeah,
to communicate with them,
exactly.
or they won't
Mhm.
cooperate.
Well, that's what it is. It's learning a language, right?
Yeah.
And gaming is a culture, and it has its the cultures have their own languages. Art and creativity, you know, different art forms have their own languages. So for couples to do it together as well, that's really important. And yeah, so sometimes I will. Well, actually, I've done classes or workshops for parents to understand gaming as a culture and like the language of gaming so that they can actually talk about it or understand what their children are showing them so
Yeah.
that they can engage.
But, like, this generation of parents, I think, like, our age, all of us grew up with games, some sort of video game, so
Mm,
are they easier to understand their kids or
yeah.
yeah, right?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, they're definitely.
So they understand a bit
Mhm.
more
Bit more yeah, they have, like, an entry
to
point, right?
yeah,
But, you know, even for me and my stepson, I love gaming, but the games he plays are so different
different
from the
uh-huh.
games that I play. So I'm always still learning from him and having to, yeah, like we just like very different games, and I'll try to sit down and play with him, but I'm just like, it's too hard for me. So I'll just watch him play and we'll talk about it and it's fun. But it's, it's I think some of those things, the words and terms that are used in this culture can apply to other areas of life as well. So it's really about like understanding how, yeah, understanding their world, but then how can you use that world to like understand the wider world as well?
Yeah, I think that's very important because a lot of times with different generation, not
Mm,
I think the understanding part is the most important thing because not understanding and you're forcing your perspective into his world and then he doesn't understand your world and then there's like a lot of conflicts
mm,
and then
mm,
with that there'll be even more gap between
yeah.
each other and then there's more distance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's can feel like, hey, they're like my parent or my partner doesn't care about the things I care about, or it doesn't care enough to want
To
to make that
understand.
time to
Yeah.
understand. And
Yeah.
not even that they have to, they still might not get it, but even just the act of the willingness to try
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah, because we watched no, we watched we watched this documentary during the weekend. It was about, a story in China, like, and it was a time when, like, kids were addicted to internet when internet
Mm,
just started,
mhm, mhm,
and parents will force kids to some, like, a camp
mm,
to force them to quit
yeah,
gaming or being online, and they use, like, really extreme ways to force kids not to do that, and it's more like putting them into, like, military.
okay, uh-huh,
So that was like a dot that came out from that, almost like a concentration camp,
wait,
and
that's
he came
intense.
out and saying, like, he got electrocuted
Oh.
and a lot of kinda like abuse or
Mhm, mhm,
something like that, and that was pretty crazy. The reporter had the parents she reported the story, like, almost 15, 20 years ago, and now she's revealing this thing again, and she was
mm,
saying, like, when at the time she went to that place, they had the parents and the kids sitting across from each other and asking, like, "How much do you love your parents?" They all raised their hands, and the parents also love their kids,
mhm,
but how much did the parents, like, did they hit the kids
mm,
or something
mm,
that and the kids also say yes, and
mm,
they just don't understand each other,
mm,
and even though they love each other, but they just can't communicate. So the
mm,
parents just throw the kids into the camp
mhm.
and seeing if that could correct what they think.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's pretty
yeah,
sad.
mhm, yeah, it just kinda shows the extent to which, like, there's fear sometimes when the state of the world, you want your child to succeed, and it's like you put them through difficult things because what they'll be faced with in the world is gonna be way worse. It's kinda sometimes the thinking is like, "Better than I do it or better than the world punishing you."
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because, right, like you're saying, they both obviously love each other and want what's best, but
They just don't know
sometimes
how to.
they just don't know how, yeah, and it
Yeah.
could seem like there's just nothing else, like there's no other option, and so I think, I don't know, that's kind of why I like doing what I do, to just so that there's other options, like,
Yeah.
there's just more than one way of, doing therapy, there's more than one way of processing your feelings, more than one way of communicating and thinking about yourself now. Like, so why not use the things you love to do that? So that's
So
my
would you
perspective.
introduce us the game that, you invented?
I've done a lot of playing at the different conventions and such with folks. And often folks will say it feels like therapy, depending on how it's played. But it's called Source of Dreams. I see it as what's called a tabletop role playing game. So tabletop role playing games are games like Dungeons and Dragons, which you've
Mhm.
probably seen. If you know Stranger Things, of course, a lot of shows. It's a game where you basically you play with a group of players, and you're using your imagination really to create a story together.
Mhm,
And the way it's done is by everybody creates their own unique individual imaginary character.
mhm,
And one person in the group is kind of the guide or leads. Some people say storyteller, some people say game master. And they're describing the rest of the world that these players' characters live in. So they're populating this world with monsters or allies or enemies, villagers, stores, animals. They're like the entire world. And the players have to work together in overcoming the challenges that the guide sets for the players. And so this game is very much is kind of in that spirit. There's two ways of playing. You can play as a fictional character,
Mhm.
and the purpose is like you either play as a fictional character or yourself, and your goal is you're on your journey towards a dream. This is a metaphorical map of that dream.
Okay.
And there's different pathways that you can travel towards as you get from point A to point B. But what makes this game therapeutic is that um, like role playing games, they tend to focus on character growth. For this game, it's more grounded in reality and I identified 5 things that help people overcome stressful situations. Not all stress is bad.
Mhm.
Often when I work with kids, sometimes it's hard for them to talk about the things that are difficult in their lives. Um, but I would say, like, everybody has stress, right? It's not a bad thing. But they're like, "No, I'm fine. I'm always calm." But then I was like, "Well, you play video games, right? There's nothing stress-free about video games." And that's usually when they smile and laugh. They're like, "Yeah, you're right. Games are stressful." So I identified 5 things that video games do to help players overcome stressful scenarios in the game. And those 5 things I call resources. So that they represent your internal and external resources. You're building those 5 resources so that you become more of a resourceful person, so that you can adapt yourself to different situations, like life.